That determination carried me forward. Slowly, I pieced together skills. I devoured books from the store, economics, psychology, technology. I learned how people think, how businesses grow, and how money works. At first, it was just to survive, but then I began to see patterns. I realized that knowledge was leverage. The turning point came when Mrs. Harper, the bookstore owner who had taken me in, noticed me sketching designs in the margins of an old notebook. "You have an eye," she said. "Why don't you show people what you can do?" I laughed it off at first. Who would pay attention to a girl who used to sleep on benches? But she insisted. She let me design a new logo for her shop. When customers noticed and complimented it, something sparked inside me. Mrs. Harper introduced me to one of her friends, a retired entrepreneur who had built and sold a small publishing company. He became my mentor, teaching me not only about design, but about contracts, negotiations, and money management. He drilled into me, keep records, always, protect yourself, trust, but verify. I listened because I had already learned what blind trust could cost. The years blurred into a rhythm: work, study, fail, rebuild, succeed. I opened a small online store, selling designs, custom covers, and eventually expanding into digital products. Every setback became fuel, every rejection a reminder of the night I was left standing in the rain. By the time I turned 28, I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. I had a company registered under my name, a small but loyal team, and clients who flew in from different states just to meet me. I bought my first apartment with cash. The day I held those keys, I stood in the empty living room, sunlight streaming through the windows, and laughed until tears rolled down my face. This time they weren't tears of despair. I decorated the place with second-hand furniture, bookshelves stacked with every title I had ever loved, and plants that reached for the light like I did. My friends, my chosen family, came over to celebrate. We ate cheap takeout on the floor, drank wine from mismatched glasses, and for the first time I felt like I was building something real. But just as life had taught me to hope, it reminded me of its cruelty. One evening, after a long day of meetings, I unlocked my phone to find a message waiting. The name on the screen made my breath hitch. It wasn't a client, not a friend. It was a number I didn't recognize, but the words hit like a thunderclap. "We need to talk about what happened 12 years ago." My heart pounded. My fingers hovered above the keyboard. Who was we? Why now? And most of all, what could possibly be said after everything? 12 years had passed since the night the rain swallowed me whole. 12 years since the slam of that door, the echo of my father's voice cutting me down. And now the world knew my name. I wasn't just the daughter they kicked out. I was the founder of a thriving design firm, the woman who had turned scraps of paper sketches into international contracts. Reporters wanted interviews, magazines wanted covers, and clients lined up for my work. The first time I saw my face on television, framed by the words "From nothing to CEO," my knees nearly buckled. For a moment, I was 16 again, staring at that locked door, feeling the sting of rejection. But instead of tears, a smile crept across my lips. I had done it. I had built something no one could take away from me. Yet success is a magnet for envy. Within weeks of that interview, whispers began circulating online. Anonymous comments on forums, rumors about my past. She was kicked out because she stole from her own parents. "Don't trust her, she lies." Each sentence felt like a dagger. I tried to ignore them at first, but investors started asking questions. A few deals were suddenly postponed. Some people I thought were allies grew distant, their eyes filled with suspicion. At night, the old fear returned, curling around me like smoke. Was it happening again? Was I about to lose everything I had built because of the same lie that ruined my teenage years? I refused to let history repeat itself. I opened the locked drawer in my apartment, where I had stored the recordings and notes I'd kept for years, snippets of conversations, bank statements, receipts. Back then, when I realized no one would believe me without proof, I started documenting everything, not out of vengeance, but out of survival. And now, for the first time, I felt the power of those quiet, desperate choices. I began investigating. The rumors had started small, on anonymous blogs, but soon they appeared in business columns. I traced an IP address from one of the first leaks. When the results popped up on my screen, I froze. It wasn't random. It wasn't some jealous competitor. It was a local IP address tied to my childhood home. For a moment, I thought, maybe it was my father, maybe my mother. But then I dug deeper. The email account tied to the leak was familiar, too familiar. It was Daniel. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear my own thoughts. The boy who had pushed me out into the rain, the boy whose lie had stolen 12 years of my life, was still clawing at me. Only now I wasn't the helpless girl he could throw aside. I was stronger, smarter. I had the receipts, literally. And then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed again. A new message, this time from a number I recognized. My father's. "Your mother and I, we miss you. Come have dinner with us. It's time to make amends." My hands went cold. After 12 years of silence, after birthdays and graduations missed, after nights I cried myself to sleep, wishing for their voices. Now they remembered me? Now, when my face was on magazine covers and my name was spoken in business circles. I stared at the text, the words blurring as my chest tightened. A part of me wanted to throw the phone against the wall, to scream. Another part wanted to collapse, to let myself believe, just for a moment, that they meant it. "Make amends," I whispered to the empty apartment. What did that even mean, coming from them? I sat down on the couch, phone still in my hand. My friend's laughter from the night before echoed faintly in my ears. And I realized how different my life had become. I wasn't the scared 16-year-old anymore. But I also wasn't sure if I was ready to face the ghosts of the past. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, torn between longing and rage. Part of me still craved my mother's embrace. Part of me wanted to confront my brother, to throw his lies back at him in front of everyone. The next morning, I drafted a reply. My thumb hovered over the send button for several seconds before I pressed it. "Dinner sounds good. Tell me when." I didn't add anything else. No emojis, no affection, no questions. Just a simple acceptance. Because deep inside, I needed answers. I needed to hear the truth from their mouths, even if it shattered me all over again. And maybe, just maybe, this dinner would finally reveal what really happened that night, 12 years ago. I hadn't seen them in 12 years. 12 years of silence, of empty birthdays, of wondering if they even remembered the girl they'd thrown out like garbage. And now, because of a message that read, "We miss you, let's have dinner," I found myself standing in front of the same house, older, stronger, but trembling inside, just like that night in the rain. The door opened before I even knocked. My mother stood there, smaller than I remembered, lines carved deep around her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears the moment she saw me. You came," she whispered, reaching out. For a second, my chest tightened. I almost let her pull me into her arms. Almost. Instead, I gave a polite smile, keeping just enough distance that her hand touched only air. My father was at the table, stiff in his chair. His hair had gone gray at the temples, his back slightly bent. He didn't smile, but he didn't scowl either. "Sit down," he said, as if I were a guest, not his daughter. The dining table was set, just like old times: steamed rice, braised meat, and bowls of soup. I hadn't tasted my mother's cooking in over a decade, and the smell alone dragged me back into childhood. For a moment, I wanted to close my eyes and pretend we were still a family. Mother ladled soup into my bowl. "You've grown so much," she said gently. "So beautiful. We've missed you." Her words should have healed me. They should have melted away the years of loneliness. And yet there was something missing, something hollow. Neither she nor my father mentioned why I had been gone. No acknowledgement, no apology. Only surface-level pleasantries, like neighbors catching up after years apart. I forced myself to eat. My hands didn't shake anymore, not like they used to. I kept my face calm, even as memories stormed behind my eyes. My father's finger pointing at me, my brother's smug grin, the door slamming shut. Then, between bites of rice, my mother said, "We're so proud of you. We see you on TV. A successful businesswoman. Who would have thought?" She laughed nervously. "We always knew you had potential." "Always knew?" My spoon paused midair. I looked at her, searching again for the truth in her eyes. But she looked down, busying herself with her food. That was when Daniel cleared his throat. He looked older, yes, but not in the way my parents did. He had the hollow eyes of someone who'd gambled more than he could afford to lose. His fingers drummed on the table nervously, and when I met his gaze, he looked away, jaw tightening. The conversation limped along, awkward and hollow, like a play where every actor had forgotten their lines. My father asked about my company, my mother complimented my dress, Daniel barely spoke. Then I noticed it, an envelope sitting near my father's elbow. Thick, stuffed, not a letter, paperwork. My gut twisted. "Business must be going well," my father said. His voice was smoother now, practiced. "You must be doing very well for yourself." I nodded slightly. "I manage." He exchanged a glance with my mother. She clasped her hands nervously. "We've been struggling," she said softly. "Your brother's business didn't go as planned. Some debts piled up. It's been hard." There it was. The truth, or at least part of it. My chest went cold, then hot. They hadn't called because they missed me. They called because they needed something. "Debts," I repeated. My voice was calm, almost too calm. "And now you want my help?" Mother's eyes filled again. "You're our daughter. Family must help each other." The irony nearly made me laugh. Family. The word rolled around the table like a poisoned fruit. Where was this family when I was 16, shivering in the rain with nowhere to go? I glanced at Daniel. He had been silent too long. Finally, he slammed his hand on the table, the sound sharp and jarring. His face twisted with anger, the same smirk now replaced by something darker. "Don't act like you're innocent," he spat. "You think we don't remember? You ruined everything that night. You made me lie. You made me." He stopped, realizing he'd said too much. My heart lurched, but not from pain this time. From recognition. He just admitted it. My mentor's words echoed in my head. Keep records. Always protect yourself. I thought of the recordings I had saved, the proof I had carried like a secret weapon for over a decade. I pushed my chair back slowly, the leg scraping against the wooden floor. My father's eyes narrowed, my mother clutched her apron, and Daniel was breathing hard, his fists clenched. Reaching into my bag, I placed a thick envelope on the table, the same one I had spotted earlier by my father's side. Only this time it was mine. It wasn't filled with debt papers. It was filled with the truth. Their faces paled. And then, just as I was about to speak, my phone buzzed again. Another message. Same unknown number from before. Don't trust them. They haven't told you everything. My eyes flickered between the screen and my family. My heart hammered so loudly, I was sure they could hear it. Who else could be hiding in the shadows of my past? The silence after Daniel's outburst was heavier than the storm that had drenched me 12 years ago. His words, "You made me lie," still hung in the air like a confession no one wanted to touch. My mother's chopsticks froze midair. My father's jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might crack. I slid the envelope across the table. Its weight landed with a dull thud against the wood. "Do you know what this is?" I asked. My voice was steady, almost detached, as if it belonged to someone else. My father didn't move. My mother finally whispered, "What is it, dear?" Her voice quavered, brittle as thin glass. "Proof," I said simply. "Proof that 12 years ago you chose to believe a lie. Bank statements, receipts, recordings. Every word Daniel said the night you threw me out, I kept it." Daniel's face turned crimson. "You went through my stuff." "No," I replied coldly. I was smart enough to record the truth when no one believed me, because I knew one day this moment would come. I pressed the play button on my phone. His teenage voice filled the dining room, shaky but clear. "It wasn't me, it was her. She took the money." Then a pause, followed by his nervous laugh and the words he had just repeated last night. "She made me lie." The room collapsed into silence again. My mother's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. My father's face fell, the color draining from his cheeks. And Daniel stood there, trembling, torn between shame and rage. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. My father finally spoke. We didn't know." His voice cracked, and for the first time, I saw not the towering man who had exiled me, but an old man frightened of his own reflection. "You didn't want to know," I said quietly. "It was easier to sacrifice me than admit your son wasn't perfect." My mother's tears spilled freely now, but she still didn't say the one thing I had waited over a decade to hear. "No, I'm sorry. No, we were wrong." Just tears, as if her sorrow alone could wash away the years of silence. I stood up, smoothing my skirt with calm hands. The girl who once begged for their love was gone. I had built my own life, brick by brick, scar by scar. "I forgive you," I said. Their eyes lit up for a split second, but I raised my hand before they could speak. "But don't misunderstand. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean going back." My father's lips parted, as if he wanted to argue. Daniel muttered something under his breath. I reached for my bag, slinging it over my shoulder. "You wanted me gone once," I said, my voice trembling, not with fear but with power. "And I survived, I thrived. I don't need this house to feel like I belong. I've built a family of my own, people who never doubted me, who never threw me away. The room was silent except for the ticking clock. I could feel their eyes burning into my back as I walked to the door. The morning sun spilled across the porch as I stepped outside. It wasn't raining this time. The light touched my face, warm and steady, as if reminding me I was no longer the abandoned girl in the storm. I inhaled deeply, the air tasting of freedom. For the first time in 12 years, I turned back to look at the house, but my eyes were not filled with tears or rage. They were calm, resolute. The house looked smaller than I remembered, its walls not as tall, its windows not as menacing. Maybe it had never been as big as I thought. It was just that I had been so small. I walked down the familiar street, every step lighter than the last. My phone buzzed again. I almost didn't check it, but curiosity won. A new message lit up the screen. This time it wasn't from my parents. It was from Daniel. "Please, I need your help. I didn't mean for things to go this far. You're rich now, you can save us. Don't forget, you owe me. Without me, you wouldn't be who you are." I stopped in my tracks, staring at the words. My fingers tightened around the phone, but there was no anger anymore. Only clarity. He was still the same boy who had sacrificed me to protect himself. He hadn't changed, and I had no obligation to carry his weight anymore. I typed slowly, carefully, choosing every letter with precision, the way I had learned to do in business deals. "I don't owe you anything. I built myself in spite of you, not because of you. This is goodbye." I hit send. My thumb hovered over the screen for a second. Then I locked the phone and slipped it back into my bag. As I walked toward the rising sun, the city alive around me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. Not the desperate, forced freedom of a girl with nowhere to go, but the deliberate, chosen freedom of a woman who finally understood her worth. I wasn't the girl they abandoned. I was the woman who survived, the woman who rebuilt, the woman who no longer needed their approval to shine. And as the sunlight warmed my face, I whispered to myself, "This is my family now, me and the people who stood by me. The rest, I release." For the first time in 12 years, I felt whole.